caretaker soul.
Hello, people of God. My name is Janet Abayo. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And today I'll be talking about how to deal with the traumatic aftermath that manifests itself as a theological crisis. But before I go into this conversation proper, I encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that I can be able to produce more content just for you. So again, like I said, today's video is going to be encouraging people who have been frustrated at God and His ways due to an aftermath of a traumatic experience. But first, maybe you might be wondering, well, what is she talking about? What is trauma? First, I think all of us can agree, or at least most of us can agree, that trauma is very invasive, not just to a person's psyche, but to their spirituality. It introduces a sense of alienation that causes the victim to feel abandoned by God. Everyone who is struggling with trauma tends to experience a perception of rejection from God, whether that is a reality or not, but it is usually an accompanied perception of people who struggle with trauma. And the reality is, trauma introduces a sense of alienation that causes the victim to feel abandoned by God. It shatters one's confidence in self, in others, and in God. Such consequences have pushed a lot of people to committing suicide, and others have experienced or begin to experience destructive life patterns. If left untreated, it creates unhealthy coping strategies that translate as dismissal, fury, isolation, or emotional and spiritual apathies. At the foundation of the heart of any person struggling with theological crisis is the inability to accept the truth of God's love towards them. Most people who suffer with trauma find it hard to believe in God's love for them. Now, maybe you might be asking, well, so how do I know if I'm experiencing what Janet is talking about? How do I know if I am experiencing a crisis of belief or a theological crisis? The truth is, there are countless signs that manifest as symptoms of crisis of belief or as symptoms of theological crisis. These symptoms could be emotional, spiritual, psychological, emotional, social, and so on and so forth. On this particular video, I will be focusing on the psycho-spiritual symptoms of the aftermath of trauma. When you experience repeated moodiness, anger, and try to dismiss any conversation that has to do with the divine, then you might be struggling with a traumatic aftermath that is theologically induced. Sometimes this avoidance is by withdrawal or overindulgence in religious activities. Sometimes people who struggle with theological crisis also experience prolonged confusion, dissociation, or disconnection with purpose. And so most times you find yourself asking questions like, why am I here? Why am I still alive? Why am I on earth? What did God create me to do? Why did He even create me in the first place? Who am I created to help? Who am I created to serve? Does my life have a purpose? So these are some of the questions that are very prevalent to people who are struggling with theological crisis. Another indicator that suggests that rehabilitation from a crisis of belief is needed is when you feel rejected by God in a way that makes you question whether God is against your happiness or not. So when you begin to find yourself asking questions like, does God really care about my happiness? If He does, why is He allowing that to crush? Why is He allowing that relationship to crumble? Why is He allowing that source of income to be dashed? Why is He allowing my expectations to be crushed over and over again? If we find ourselves asking questions like that, or asking questions about God's ability to cover or protect our happiness, then we might be struggling with a theological crisis or a crisis of belief. And I want to shed light a little about what behavioral science talks about theological crisis and what it means to a traumatic person. Judith Hammond, a psychiatrist and a social scientist, in her book Trauma and Recovery states, traumatized people feel utterly abandoned, utterly alone, cast out of the human and divine systems of care and protection that sustain life. She further states traumatic events violate the victim's faith in a natural or divine order and cast the victim into a state of existential crisis. And so the reality is, it is hard to feel left out by God. It is hard to feel abandoned by God. And these are common feelings. Again, like I said from the introductory part of this video, these are common feelings associated with any individual experiencing a theological crisis. Well, if you identify with any of these symptoms that I just mentioned, then I want to encourage you to not give up on yourself. Today's video, like I said at the beginning, is aimed at encouraging you. I'm here to remind you that there's hope for you. I'm here to remind you that you can seek help. You can continue to pursue this God, and you can continue to trust God to restore hope to your heart. And you can also continue to pursue help through building healthy communities, through joining religious groups, and through doing activities that will again revive your first love, that will again remind you that this God still loves you. Because the reality is, our perceptions are not always the reality. Our feelings are always product of our perceptions, and our perceptions often lie to us. And that's why, if you're feeling today that God is against your happiness, if you're feeling today that God is not for you, I want you to remember that there's hope for you. In fact, Lamentations 3:21-24 says, "Yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is His faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. I say to myself, the Lord is my inheritance, therefore I will hope in Him." These are the words of God to you today, okay? That God's mercies for today are too beautiful to sustain you today, okay? But also, God's mercies for tomorrow will be new and fresh. God isn't going to give you a stale mercy for tomorrow. The mercies He has released for you today, the hope He has released for you today, the encouragement, the favor He has released for you today are for today. And if you are experiencing a glimpse of hope today, make sure you grasp it, make sure you hold on to it, and make sure you never let it go, because that is a sign that healing is beginning to take place in your life. Hope is a sign of healing. Love is a sign of healing. Peace is a sign of healing. And sometimes it might come temporarily. And even when hope or other positive emotions, other positive feelings come our way, we need to be able to embrace them, even when they come in little doses. We need to be able to learn how to embrace little doses of hope. And this is my encouragement to you today, that as you remember that you are God's inheritance and He is your inheritance, that He is faithful and His mercies will never lie to you. His mercies will never abandon you. That His mercies are true, they are real, they are beyond your perceptions, they are beyond your feelings, they are beyond your understanding. I pray you remember this truth today and hold on to God even in the midst of whatever type of theological crisis you might be struggling with, whatever type of crisis of belief you might be struggling with. I need you to hold on to that glimpse of hope. I need you to hold on to faith. I need you to remember that God's mercies, according to His truth and His historical integrity and future truth, we know that God's mercies and God's hope will never fail you, because He has never failed anyone. Thank you so much for staying with me. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment below on the types of content you would want me to continue to produce on my YouTube channel just for you. Remember to stay blessed, loved, and connected. Thank you, and God bless you. Bye-bye.